Good morning and welcome. It's time for Freshly Pressed as we get started. Everything related to the news headlines this morning is what we're serving you. And I've got the analysts for Friday getting ready. Well, you might want to say pepped up already with, morning tea, maybe 40 years in some cases, but only for those it's in quotes that they understand it, but better. That's a backstage conversation overflowing right now. But hey, gentlemen, good morning. I say good morning to Sir Joe Obari, OBE.
I'm
Good morning.
I'm not qualified. I'm not my humble self. I remember my ordinary self, ordinary Joseph Obari. Good
Well,
morning. It's morning to be here again. Listeners, you're all welcome to the show.
good morning, AB Bozimo, for your time.
Good morning. It's great to join you, and good morning to all of the wonderful listeners everywhere.
Okay, now that you mentioned the listeners, so we'll bring them up to speed and then we'll get into the headlines as quickly because we see a lot to be taken care of this morning on the table. So just to be part of it, you send us a WhatsApp message to 0809 444 0981. Then you can catch a live stream of the gentleman this morning, helping us break down the papers, details, and then getting yours across also. Go over to youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos, subscribe to a YouTube channel. Then you can always catch a replay of Freshly Pressed there. And then you can also tweet at Smooth 981 FM. Yes, on X. That's the platform Elon Musk is having ownership since he bought it from Jack Dorsey way back. Is Jack coming back? You never know. But let's dig into the headlines this morning. AB, please do us the honors and walk us through the Vanguard newspaper where the headline says Tinubu approves 50,000 naira upliftment grant for 3.6 million families in Nigeria. Walk us through this and what's the modality?
The president has actually approved much more. This is one small part of an omnibus bill named the National Construction and Household Support Program, which is going to provide, among other things, for this 150,000 naira for 100,000 families for 3 months. But apart from that, it also includes a one-off allocation to states and the Federal Capital Territory of 10 billion for the procurement of buses and CNG uplift program. So that is 370 billion right there. Then the delivery, of course, of the 50,000. Then there is an unnamed amount called provision for labor union and civil society organizations. Why didn't they call the figure there? Then further, the deployment of 155 billion for the purchase and sale of assorted foodstuff to be distributed across the nation. Listen, I have nothing wrong with money entering the hands of highly, indigent Nigerians right now. I would argue that every Nigerian needs that money apart from the political class. And this construction is supposed to take place across all the 6 zones of the country. You have highways in some cases, railway in some cases. Very, very positive bill, if you ask me. My question is, this is just in my ear, another announcement with another fancy name, with very lofty aspirations. I would like to ask the civil servants amongst us, that 35,000 that was promised to be given to them, that they started and stopped, how is that going? It's one thing to make these announcements. Again, the intention could be noble, but my question is, how do we effect them? How are we executing? How do I identify those families? How do we ensure that the funds actually get to them? How do we cut across all strata of society, all political classes, all everything? Because somehow you hear about these things, later on you hear that it was spent, but still, unless it's a secret, you rarely know people around you who may have benefited. Yes, some callers will tell me that they know, and I'm happy to hear that. But 100,000 families is not 3 families. It would be nice to hear that these monies get deep into people's economy and then begin to have the effect of spreading around and making it, you see, with 100,000 naira, with 50,000 naira, you're able to buy a few more things than you could before. And hopefully that enters the Akara woman's hand, it enters the bread seller's hand and so on. But the most important statement in this entire thing that I love is that the president spoke directly to the governors. We talk about the presidency, the president, Tinubu. He spoke to governors. How much do you need from me and in what form? I am prepared to provide it. We must achieve the result. We must deliver on our targets at all levels. Please report back following your consultations and submit to my office within 7 days. This, for me, leave all the rest of the promises. This is the call to action. The governors are the ones literally in charge of the lives of the average Nigerian in each state. And they have been called to step up the game and given literally an open book. How much support? It doesn't mean that what you ask for, you get all of it. It also does not mean it's all about money. Remember, they said, how much support and in what form? Their ideas. So now let us task our governors. One of the biggest banes of Nigerian life is that, in my view, we have some of the most unproductive, uncreative, and uninspired governors in the history of mankind. You have populations in the various states, some younger than others, some more intellectual than others, some more energetic, and you just sit down and wait at the end of the month to crawl to Abuja and get an FAAC, which you come and distribute to assorted people, and it doesn't enter the people. So now, the governors have been told, tell us what you need, come up with creative solutions. Let us collaborate to make Nigerians' lives better. Everybody, turn your attention slightly away from the president and look at your governor and demand that the governor gives creative solutions that have you in mind.
Okay, let's go over now to Joe Obari this morning, where, well, you have passed the test already with it's passed the test, so it means you can take off this headline for us, where it says reps pass anti-doping bill, and that's from the Punch newspaper.
I've never done a doping test anyway. Some people like Pogba and Co are getting into trouble mysteriously, and he claims he didn't dope intentionally. But I think it is something that should have happened a decade ago. Why is it that in 2024, Nigeria is passing an anti-doping bill to be acceptable in the international sporting community, to be seen to be doing the right thing? I think all the time we just kind of want to play as if we are different. We do our own things our own way. But this kind of, like Jessica attitude to important issues can hurt our people, because if our sportsmen and women are not consciously groomed in the practice of compliance, then they will go out there and meet a different standard. So we're actually creating an environment for a separate kind of field for our people to play. So they are not even familiar. We don't even have a national anti-doping center. It is just now this bill called a bill for an act to domesticate and enforce in Nigeria the International Convention Against Doping in Sports, establish the National Anti-Doping Center to implement Nigeria's obligations to World Anti-Doping Code, international standards, and for related matters. Quite a name for a bill, but the idea is simply that bring Nigeria in conformity with international anti-doping standards, so that our athletes are not shortchanged and not surprised when they go out there. If you have a center that is managing athletes and making them, then you're able to groom them, get them more conscious. Let them know, for example, what Obari is saying, he didn't know intentionally take, but what kind of food are you eating that possibly can expose you? That awareness can only be done by a center such as that. And it's coming in 2024, for goodness sake. And the reason why they are rushing this is because they want that if this bill is not passed before July 26, I guess, Nigeria will not participate in the Olympics. So there's some pressure. We shouldn't wait for pressures to be pushed in order to be able to do what is right. So all our sports administrators, where have they been? Where have they been? So these are the critical questions we should be asking. But the joy is that, okay, we started somewhere. They say for some people, it's when you wake up that is your morning. So we hope that the bill is passed and then people are able to participate in the Olympics.
So, AB, I know you want to chime in here, but also factor this in, bouncing off of what of what Joe has said. It will come as if we perform always when there is pressure. Diming it to a strike, you hear there's a meeting, there's a JoJo, and then the cloud disperses, and then we go back again. Diming it for us to go for a competition, the Eagles go to camp, and then somewhere along the line, there is a result, and then we go back. So this pressure thing, is this becoming a national way of life to get results?
First of all, when there's a fire brigade approach such as this, it gives room for a lot of people to just, frankly, make money because you can call everything an emergency. There is no reason why I should have taken the impending Olympics for us to have an anti-doping thing. We've had situations where some of our athletes, unfortunately in the past, have been disqualified from competition. Maybe at the last Olympics, it happened. 4 entire years ago, it happened. Yet, it's only taken us 15 minutes to the Olympics for us to make this happen. Meanwhile, it took us 15 minutes to pass the old anthem into the new. So it's not as if we're not capable of moving fast. But when we prioritize the wrong thing, of course, you will have this kind of thing. Well, as Joseph has said, let us become in compliance. But we're just passing the law. Again, how effectively will we execute? We're saying we want a center. You cannot build this center in place in the next 30 days. It's not really going to be.
It's not even in the budget.
So there might still be some errors. There might be some errors for some of our athletes, but let's pray that some of our athletes, some of them actually come from outside to join the Nigerian contingent, may already be familiar. And then those who are setting it up from here, who are evidently not familiar, should open their ears and listen to others who may have more experience.
Okay. That looks like a fine place for us, using your expertise as an architect, certified one, to help us navigate our next terrain, which is the National Assembly. And they may need your service if eventually they want to set up this next facility, which is not anti-doping now, but that's according to the headline. Let's look at it here. From the Punch newspaper, it says the National Assembly plans medical center for senators and reps. Lead us through and see if you can look at the plan for us.
Yes, the Senate President has disclosed plans. Plans again, never reporting anything done by the National Assembly to establish an ultra-modern medical center for senators, members of the House of Representatives, and staffers of the Federal Parliament. On the surface of it, not a bad thing. May 1,000 flowers bloom. May many and more medical facilities be available to meet the needs of Nigerians. Just the other day, unfortunately, we were aware of somebody who was giving some oversight committee some statements, and he literally slumped in real time and passed on. There was maybe no emergency service immediately nearby. Who knows what could have happened? So we're not saying that it's a bad thing, but here's the question. Was it not 1, 2, 3 years ago that there was one medical center built or proposed for 21 odd billion naira at Aso Rock for 14 beds? I don't know that there's that much distance between them. At the end of the day, all these attempts to create these hallowed halls, there should be public centers also that have the capacity to deal with emergencies and world-class, to use their word, ultra-modern medical centers. Again, it's not bad to create more centers, but they say the planned hospital constructed in such a way to be accessible to all the lawmakers and staffers of the National Assembly. Will this stop medical tourism that they typically go on outside? Will it, because if that's one possible outcome, I would say kudos. But I worry, based on my observational experience, that nothing on earth would stop them from jumping on jets to go and get their ear, tooth, and every other thing checked somewhere else, just because they can. So he's talking about some of the bills that they have passed, that he said this is a very productive bill. The Southeast Development Bill, the Northern Bill, the old National Anthem Bill, the Death Penalty for Drug Traffickers Bill, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, I think legislators are supposed to pass bills that make ordinary person's lives better. Put it out there, Vox Populi. How do Nigerians feel that the National Assembly's priorities have addressed the challenges ordinary people are facing. That will be the ultimate measure of whether or not they have been efficient and effective. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with passing futuristic bills that can build a better Nigeria in the future. But I think side by side with that should be some bills that address Nigeria's problems. And in my view, they have not been very good thus far. They have passed the National Assembly Library Bill. They said the 10th Assembly's commitment to poverty alleviation goes beyond mere duties, an obligation we hold dear. How? Is it by sending emails to parliamentarian inboxes? Is that really part of considering my poverty? So I'm sorry, when I hear the Senate president speak, he just sounds like somebody who is actually, frankly, out of touch with the world around him. Maybe inside the Senate, he is called Mr. President, Mr. President, so he has a sense of importance. But his words and deeds do not sound like they are very important to the ordinary lives. And it's a pity because they are actually in the prime position to make bills that will affect Nigerians positively. I just don't see it.
No, so Joe, before I go, I would go, Joe, I'm coming to you shortly, but because I don't know, at what point do you architects, when these plans are drafted, do you coin this usage of ultra-modern? What's really ultra-modern in these plans when you draw them up as architect and then pass it on to them to mount it around?
Okay, I suspect ultra-modern would have to do with the nature of the facility, the equipment in it, and the way it's run. So you could even have an ultra-modern facility inside an old building, as long as the facilities are updated and modern. And when it comes to medical facilities, trust me, there is so much innovation in that sphere. So if you come in with some of the latest things where you can save lives and enhance health and safety, then you are tending towards ultra-modern. But yeah, you just hear these things bandied about. But as ultra-modern as it is, the very Senate President Akpabio did an ultra-modern hospital here in Uyo, where I happen to be right now, and jetted out when he had an accident. So who is it to tell me about ultra-modern?
Let's hear Joe. Let's hear your thoughts.
So for me, actually, I think that just like Ibi has said, you have a bunch of legislators who are completely out of touch with reality in this country. If you have been to the National Hospital in Abuja, if you've been there, you will know that it's badly in need of being uplifted. The idea behind the establishment of the National Hospital was for be one of the highly equipped and one of the best tertiary health institutions in this country. But you have,
literally.
Yeah, you go there and you find things as simple as door handles are falling off, they cannot be replaced. You have things as bad as rooms are looking shabby, they cannot replace sheets on beds and all that. National Hospital. And let our lawmakers begin to listen to what's happening around the world. Kenya is an example. When Kenyans couldn't take it anymore, they marched down on their National Assembly, on their parliament, and parliamentarians had to take a tunnel to leave, to save themselves. It's getting to that point where Nigerians feel that these people don't prioritize citizens' value above theirs. They are not there to serve. They don't show. So they carve a niche, or you carve an area of comfort for yourself. So if that money is put into the National Hospital, it will transform that place. So why can't they think of, why are they not thinking of that? Why do they want to carve a haven for themselves and those are related to them? Why should it be so? When we have dilapidated national hospitals all over, if you go to most of the teaching hospitals, mosquitoes will kill you. You go for a minor illness and you go back with a major illness because of the state in which they are. How can we continue like this? Until a group of people sit down and feel they can arrogate themselves to what they want to do for their own comfort, for themselves and their families. So they keep pushing Nigerians to a point. You can push them to a point, the edge of the cliff. One day something is going to break.
Let's see messages waiting for us on the horizon. And I've got Oluwaseyi's message here waiting, and it says, this is another way to steal money. No one has been able to provide a database used to distribute those monies, whether during the Buhari presidency and neither has this government. This 50,000 naira being shared won't get to the people who really need it. The largest percentage of it will be stolen, and another small percentage will end up with the party loyalists at the grassroots. Thoughts from Oluwaseyi reacting to the 50,000 naira proposed, distribution to 3.2 million families in the country. Now, Joseph Menye comes up saying, well, this government is only known for palliatives, which funding cannot be accounted. An advanced project of fraud and corruption. Who are those families or individuals? Why not simply do things that even the common citizens in the streets would feel the impact, not an imaginary households only they claim benefited from a scheme? That's from Joseph Menye Silva from Silver Estate Ejigbo. We see your thoughts there. Let's go across and see more from Deji. Deji says, I disagree that governors are not creative or smart. It takes intelligence to be corrupt and embezzle state funds. So AB, these governors are creative. So that's another way to put it. Then
irony.
Yeah, it said they do not have KPIs. The truth is that there is no punitive laws to tackle performance or high level of crimes in governance. That's what I find. And where would this come from? Cisco Delgado says, well, it's unfortunate that Nigeria is plunging into the ocean every day because of greed from our National Assembly members. Cisco Delgado's thoughts. One more message from Dakpo from Aguda says here, what exactly is wrong with the Senate president? Mr. President is rich enough to buy his own jet. So why are they being insensitive to the plight of Nigerians when people are busy suffering and smiling? Okay, keep the messages coming on to 0809-444-0981 and race down to YouTube to catch us a glimpse of the live stream on youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. Subscribe to the channel, leave your thoughts there. We'll pick them up. Now, AB, let's go to the Nation newspaper where that's for Joseph now. It's Joseph, that's the Nation now. ASU seeks salary renegotiation at this moment. I thought we've been through this river already. Are we back there again?
It's the same old story. They said it's the last negotiation was 15 years ago and that they are unhappy and they expect that they should start renegotiation and come to agreement on what it is. But whatever it is ASU is planning, I am begging them not to embark on another strike because they're actually killing our educational institutions. They are killing educational institutions. I'm a direct victim of this. My son, after the last 88 months strike, he told me he was no longer schooling in Nigeria. He was no longer schooling. He was doing law in Unilag. He just told me, I'm tired. I can't continue. If I'm going to continue, I have to leave this country. I can't continue to school in Nigeria. Right? So and a whole lot of young people went through all kinds of things. Some of them came back to school struggling and so on. Let them not continue to do this to our children, to the nation. Yeah, okay, so what's the result? What can we do? What can we do differently? Let them continue to have negotiation and discussions with the government and then see how this can be achieved in other ways than simply shutting down universities each time they have an issue. At this critical moment where government is even struggling with discussion on minimum wage, I don't understand how well this sits with the reality at all. But I would think that they should allow that discussion to go through. Then they can now set up when they already have a standing committee or group of people that are discussing, then reopen the conversation and let that conversation go on as much as it's possible. And then if eventually they can come to a landing. It's sad that we have a government that is insensitive to everybody except themselves. So even when they come to agreements, they can decide to just ignore what they have said they are going to do. Like Ibi said, 35,000 payment to civil servants is in limbo. I mean, nobody hears anything. The workers are complaining after paying 1 or 2 months. It's gone into it's just dried up. So it's a dilemma. As citizens, we sympathize with ASU because it seems that it's only when they use those very hard tactics that they even manage to get any bit of response. So it just boils down to the kind of leadership we've got.
So, AB, also coming on this one, Joseph has talked about the need for negotiation, but negotiations can go on for all eternity with the kind of employer we've got as a federal government or even in Nigeria.
Negotiations succeed when there is actually good faith. I aver that the Nigerian government does not display good faith in these negotiations. First of all, 15 years, something that should have been happening every 3 years. It shows that they have little or no interest in education. Now, abroad, all the graduations just happened May, June, July. Many of them went there. They've actually begun to have a little bit of shame. They no longer post the pictures of themselves and their offspring graduating abroad. But the root cause of anything must be understood. It's not us who causing the educational problem. It is the government that's not being responsible and responsive to their requirements. And let's get it right. Education is the key to upliftment of a society. Proper education in all spheres will give people the tools which to transform their own lives and not have to depend on 50,000 naira handouts as if we're all lining up as beggars somewhere. But it appears they don't want people to be intellectually upgraded because then they can question them. Again, the president said, governors step forward. I know that caller said governors are creative. Yes, creative in a negative way. But yes, to that extent, he's right. I can't argue with that. Not that caller, that message that somebody sent in.
So in about a minute, if you can lead us through the Daily Trust newspaper where this headline, personalized fight against child labor. Federal government begs Nigerians.
Basically, child labor is any labor that takes a child's opportunity to actually be a child, carefree and all that. Child labor is not to be confused with chores, which my mother certainly made me do enough of. But child labor is when you make a child literally responsible for the fortunes of a family. But let's go back to the root again. Nobody ordinarily in their right mind would put a child to work if proper structures were in place where the children can safely go to school and the parents can afford. So as much as I agree that we must fight against child labor, where you see children who should be in school who are being made to work, when you see housemaids and houseboys, quote unquote, being put into tough situations, let's look at the larger society and say, let's create that economic context where people do not feel that children are an option, where you can pay adults, people are into the age of working, a proper wage, and thereby allow children be children. Child labor is no joke. Many people have been victims of it. Some of them have come out to do good for their lives, but the trauma haunts them literally all their lives. Children, because they're Nigerian, should not be accursed. A child should say, I grew up Nigerian. I can speak for myself. I loved my childhood. I was fortunate, but I know there are many who did not. And I know it has a lasting effect. I think of possibilities in everything because I was given that chance to think freely growing up. I know some people who had no choice but to wake up before dawn, put through all sorts of things, and at the end of the day, they did not attain their full potential. Please, let's fight against child labor. Let's make sure we hire only people who are of age to do work.
Can you also just link it to this last from the Daily Trust newspaper where governors urge to implement school feeding program, just briefly? That's child.
That's very briefly. There you have it. They say in that report that some states are doing school feeding and some are not. Right there, you have that dichotomy. I saw a recent video from Enugu State where they have created these smart schools and children from all sorts of people in public schools are being brought there. Even it's so new that the children are in different uniforms, but they are looking good, they are looking healthy, facilities are good, and they are being fed at least once a day. My father tells me how they used to go to secondary school and come back fat because they were being fed in school, different from how they were being fed at home. School was something to look forward to going to. Why on earth, as we say, we're connecting them, why should a child be suffering from malnutrition? Certainly, school is an organized place where at least a child should be able to look forward to a good meal, good education, good water and facilities. What are those governors in those states that are not feeding the schools doing with their money? Every state in this nation gets billions with a B of naira every month. It is a matter of not prioritizing. And I'll tell you, a governor that does not prioritize the children in the state has failed. So please, all governors who should be answering Tinubu's call in 7 days. We'll be back here by the good grace of God. In 7 days, we want to hear that the governors have put their requirements, both in cash and kind, to the president. And let's hear how creative they can be, not just in stealing money, quote unquote, but in making the lives of their citizens better. Let's stand by. 7 days is not
that takes
10
us
years.
to our messages to close up the conversation, freshly pressed this morning, where we go over to Ajayi Oloninluwa's thoughts from GRA Sherry, and he says, I wonder why the president continues to push this idea of making cash donations to family as palliatives, even as it has been found that to be fraught with so much corruption that led to the suspension of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Better you do, you mean? Okay, well, first of all, the criteria for choosing the beneficiaries is never transparent. Such cash transfer is better used to provide amenities that will benefit everyone. That's Ajayi Oluniluwa's thought this morning. And then I see a message here from OBA Michael. Who are the people really need the 50K? Everybody needs it right now. That's what is thought. Everyone can make use of an extra 50K. I doubt, but maybe Joe would not be in need of it. Maybe you also,
yeah,
AB,
Joe,
but I think
I'm in the vulnerable category, please. I'm a retiree.
very vulnerable.
And I find a thought from Vincent this morning saying, ASU is not the problem, the government is. That's from Vincent. And then I've got Adewale, our problems are basic and fundamental. All we need is intentional governance. With this, Nigeria can be great within few days. Days, not even months, as he has said here.
I agree. I agree.
And Tony from Marine Beach here tells me the insensitive behavior of leadership is what makes unions take it up against them, sometimes like without reasoning. You are right. I appeal to ASU not to step down on the strike option for now. Okay, I see Oluwaseyi's thought. I see Dayo. I see Pastor Dakpo's message there. But I say thank you to all of you for tuning in and for sending your thoughts and for making this edition such a great one. Thank you to Joseph Obari for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, listeners. It's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much to
nice
AB.
To see you again.
Thank you very much. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to join you guys. Hit me up at AB Bozimo on all platforms and always talk a bit more.